And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir.
So I'm still trying to decipher, Blake, if Nick Saban's daughter liking my tweet regarding his son's putting or her son's putting ability. I'm still trying to figure out if that was because she thought it was funny or if she was mad for criticizing her son's focus.
If she was mad, Kristen would have definitely let you know. Believe you me. Oh, no. I'm not guessing. I'm telling you, she would have let you know. But nevertheless, obviously there was a video that was released by Kristen Saban, Kristen Saban, her son putting with her grandfather, Nick Saban, the legend head coach, and which you said.
I said he needs to lock the fuck in if he wants to hit that putt. And he was roaming around on the ground. But she liked the tweet. I thought that was funny. I got a kick out of that.
Well, because it's so true. And you know what's true about it? His granddaddy probably told him the same thing. Saban probably told his grandson, you need to focus and you need to lock in. What is the likelihood that Nick Saban tells his 4 or 5 year old grandson that he needs to get more serious?
That was the first thing that popped in my head. And I hope that's true. And that was like the first thing I was thinking of. I wonder what that conversation is like on the putting green on the golf course with Saban and his grandson. It's probably somewhere along those lines.
Well, I tell you what, maybe Saban did get out at the right time because we are expanding this playoff. And Joe was announced the 5-7 model for the playoff, but it was also reported today by Pete Thamel that they had deep discussions about pushing the playoff in 2026 to a 14-team playoff. We haven't even had our first playoff game of the expanded playoff. Like, why can't we just see what it looks like first before we talk about expansion?
Yeah, I really thought that the conversation that we were going to be focusing on today is, all right, how is this going to look with the 5 and 7, all that. We're still going to talk about it, but there was just this late sprinkle thrown into the mix. Oh, by the way, they're talking about 14. The hell you mean 14? Where did that come from? Who's talking about? I want names. I want to name names. Can we start mentioning who brought this up? I am willing to bet it's not everybody, and it was probably a couple of individuals. And I'm wondering, are those people really connected to the sport, or are those some of the individuals on the playoff committee that have other interests, which we've talked about a ton on the show?
M-O-N-E-Y. How many times have I come on this show and said, even with like the Florida State realignment, which I got blistered over, by Florida State fans. I understand their pain. They want to make more money. Joe, we have to go to a commissioner. We have to get a commissioner in the sport. If you allow 20 people to make decisions, nobody's going to have the same focus and same direction because everybody has different opinions. Everybody has different goals for themselves, for their universities. There's no centric voice.
The problem, though, Blake, is the only way that we get a commissioner is if we eventually move to the 2-conference format like we've talked about, or if Charlie Baker promotes.
I disagree with that. Don't let the commissioners be like lieutenants. Let them be your lieutenants. But when it comes down to playoff expanding, when it comes to matters of the playoff, when it comes to enforcement, those kinds of things, let them run that. Don't everything else with the conferences, let it go.
But then here's the problem. Who is going to be in charge of picking said commissioner? It would need to be appointed by Charlie Baker. And do we trust him to pick somebody who has the best interests of the sport?
Well, no. Can I throw something out that's crazy?
Yeah.
I don't want to say can fans vote because that'd be stupid. But can the fans vote to see if they want a commissioner? Like if we put out a poll and we said, do you think college football needs a commissioner?
They don't care what the fans think on something like this.
That's the problem. That is the problem. What do you mean you don't care? The fans are the reason that you make money.
Well, you wouldn't have a 12-team playoff if they cared how the fans felt. The real and it's the thing that
people wanted the expansion. You don't.
They did, and Josh Pate's one of the people who's brought this up a lot. The real football fans, college football fans that have been invested for decades, are fine with the way that things currently are. Some like the idea of expansion, but don't really see the positives of it expanding further than it is and all that stuff. But the reason why, plain and simple, why they're doing this is because they don't care about those already invested fans. They want to introduce models that are going to increase the scope of viewership. It's just like all the people that suddenly hopped in and watched the national championship and the college football playoff, and all these NFL fans that were hopping in and talking about Michael Penix and saying how this guy should be the first overall pick. And they don't really have a scope on how the whole season played out. They want to find ways to get outside fans to invest in the sport. And that's why it's clear and evident that they don't care what we think. And they're never going to. The networks that are moving all of this are motivated by increasing their bottom line. And the way that they do that is by focusing less on the people who care about the sport and the ones that they haven't converted yet.
So we'll talk about that and see what me and you believe on that. Did Notre Dame get the shaft of not having an automatic qualifier? We will touch on that. Our Notre Dame a man right here, Joe DeLeone, I'm assuming, has some very choice words in this decision. Here's how I'm gonna word this. I'm gonna tell you to calm down, young grasshopper. It's not as big of a deal as Notre Dame fans think it is.
I think my response is going to surprise you because it's not going to be what you think it is.
Okay.
I'm not happy with it, but I'll save my thoughts on this for when we get to it.
Also, Kenny Dillingham, the head coach of Arizona State, told all the other coaches who are complaining about being a head coach to shut up, that stop acting like a little girl. We'll touch on that, and if we have time, we'll talk about the first-year expectations for Michigan head coach Sharon Moore. So, Joe, we got lots to discuss here. There's already a lot of battling inside of the chat. Notre Dame fans are throwing hands. The Fighting Irish are pissed off that they do not have an automatic qualifier, so we'll touch on that. Let's waste no time here, man, because, Joe, look, we just got so much that we need to talk about. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline, and let's get to it. But before we do that, everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button, hit the share to all those social media groups, share to your own social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, let's talk about our good friends at BetOnline. The college football playoff, did Notre Dame get the shaft? We talk about all that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events, with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. Okay. Ooh, a little screech in the voice there. I said, okay.
Sounded like me.
Yeah, I did. I normally don't sound like a woman. Just joking. All right, let's get to it, Joe. We don't have a lot of time to waste here. We got lots we need to discuss. Joe, it was announced this week that the college football playoff has come up with a new format of 5 automatic bids to conference champions, 4 obviously being in the Power 4 and the other being the highest group of 5, which I thought the wording on this was very weird. They actually contradict themselves in their format because they say the five highest ranked conference champs, and then they said the 7 highest ranked at large bids, which they didn't really say a Power 4. So they never really made a decision on the Pac-2. That format never came out.
Wait, so the Pac-12 is not, no matter what, is not eligible to be considered a conference because they don't have enough members. So they're automatically removed from the equation, no matter if they made a decision on it.
It's not in there.
It's an indirect understanding that they're not eligible. I believe that's a separate guideline and ruling. So just to clarify that.
Well, even for an at-large bid?
Yeah, because they only have 2 members right now. They are not.
Can't get an at-large bid?
No, they can't. No matter what, because they don't have enough teams.
They can't get in the playoffs no matter what.
No, they can get into the playoffs.
That's
sorry. Yes, they can get in through an at-large bid, but they cannot qualify for a conference winning qualifier.
Either way, the wording was very confusing, but now we have some understanding of what that is. Joe, I kick it over to you first. What do you think about the 5-7 format? What do you think about the automatic qualifiers? What do you think of this ruling?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised by this at all. I think that this is something that was inevitable and it was coming. I think that this is better for the whole playoff itself, that we're going with the 5 and then we're going to have 7 at-large teams that are going to be competing. Those 7 teams probably going to be a lot of SEC and Big Ten teams. And that is what is going to improve the product of the quality that we're going to be watching, is more Big Ten and SEC teams that are going to be participating in this. I think, though, the one piece that really catches my eye, I really don't love how the G5 is going to get as much representation as they're going to get. I think it's going to be difficult for them to get a bye in this situation, but for them to get the automatic qualifier, I think that it's just so rare that we're going to have a team that's competitive enough coming from the G5, especially in the modern era of college football, that is going to be competitive enough to compete with any of the teams in the field. We're never going to get back to that Cincinnati team that made it to the playoff, because that was pre-transfer portal madness, pre-NIL madness. Now, anytime a team has a good roster, it gets pulled apart. We are going to get more teams like Liberty that get smoked when they play Oregon.
I have made my bones about that. I 1,000% agree with you. I don't think they deserve to be in. So let me echo what you just said. I'm 1,000% with you on, I don't think a group of 5 teams should have an automatic bid whatsoever unless they're good enough and it's deemed worthy enough that they are good enough to be in there, aka Boise State that year that they beat Oklahoma so many years ago. I think that team could have had a very good you could have made a decision that maybe they could have been on a team that could have made a little bit of a run. Joe, you know what my biggest complaint in all of this playoff expansion is?
What?
Automatic qualifiers. Can I tell you why? We're going to have a Big 12 champion this year that's going to be 10-2. And then we're going to have a team in the SEC and likely in the Big 10 that won't have an automatic qualifier that will curb stomp the Big 12 champion. So let me paint you a scenario very quickly. Let's say Georgia and Texas play in the SEC championship game this year, a rematch. And let's just say they split, okay? Let's just say Georgia loses at Texas but wins in the SEC championship game. Well, Texas doesn't have an automatic qualifier. Let's say Oregon, Ohio State play each other in the Big Ten and the Big Ten title game, okay? Oregon loses. They don't get an automatic qualifier. But you know who will have an automatic qualifier in a first-round bye? Let's just say Utah wins the Big 12. I absolutely loathe, automatic qualifiers. Joe, they are going to be a top 4 seed. I do not believe that you can quantify especially in a conference that is not going to be any good, that they should have a first-round bye. How can you do that? Let me give you an example. There's a very strong possibility, that Utah plays 2 ranked opponents this year. Oregon might play 2 ranked opponents in back-to-back weeks going into the Big Ten. They might play 5 ranked opponents this year. So it's not even remotely close to the same of what they've done. It is a mass. So, Joe, let me give you – I finally found an argument and a take that can stop you from the automatic qualifier. You ready? You just said that you don't like the G5 having an automatic qualifier, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
What's the difference in the Big 12 and a champion from the Big 12 or the ACC or for any conference for that matter, okay, if we know that they're not good enough?
It's the same debate and conversation that we've always had when there was a 4-team playoff, and it's the conversation on how much do we value the fact that a team won their conference. Plain and simple, it's important.
But it wasn't an automatic qualifier if you won.
I know. Well, it wasn't an automatic qualifier, but in principle, it's the same debate that we're having, just like with this past year that we had with Florida State winning their conference. Do they deserve to get in over other teams just because
TCU is laughing over here?
They didn't win their conference, and they got in. The point I'm trying to get here is I don't think that it's bad to value winning your conference. That is an important part of college football, is winning your conference. There's 12 teams now. This isn't a small playoff field where we could end up having a messy situation like we see in the NFL all the time with teams with losing records that are getting into the playoffs. That obviously won't have a
scenario.
That's obviously not going to happen here, but there has to be some value and criteria on what proves the best teams are. More often than not, a team that wins their conference is going to be one of at least the top 5 or 6 teams in the country. Very rarely will.
Okay, to your point, can Kansas State beat Oregon, Texas, Ole Miss on a neutral field right now?
I have to see them play. I can't say with absolute certainty there.
Well, we do way too early. Let's do this way too early. Can Kansas State beat any one of those teams I just mentioned
I think that they can play competitively. I think that Utah could play competitively against those teams. I just want a
yes or no answer. Can they?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let me rephrase. Is there a strong possibility that they can beat them? No. You know what I'm
saying? Wait, we can't make these decisions based on strong possibilities because that's an objective or a subjective conversation. That is completely opinion-based if we think certain teams could easily beat other teams. It's the whole point of why we do the show, why we talk about the sport so much, is because there isn't really much certainty. We think certain teams are... We said that there was absolute certainty that Georgia was going to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game.
No, we did not. No, we did not. I said it was a 3-point game. Stop that now. Stop with your lies.
We still both picked Georgia, and most people on this planet picked Georgia. Forget the scoring. We still said Georgia will beat Alabama. That was the wording that was said on this show.
But you know what Alabama wasn't?
What?
They're not a team in the Big 12 named Utah. They had Nick Saban. It's a completely different scenario and situation. That's an SEC team, and you're making my point here. You're 1,000% making my point. Georgia, okay, to this example, if Utah goes 10-2, 9-3, and wins their conference, they're not going to be better than Georgia, and you know that.
It is highly unlikely that a conference winner will have 3 losses. I will stand on the table for that. I think there is.
Kansas State literally did it a year and a half ago.
They had 2 losses.
A 10-2 team.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. My whole point here is that a team that wins their conference has proven and done enough throughout the course of the season to prove that they're worthy of being a top 6 team. If you're in the top 6 discussion, you should get priority over the teams that did not win their conference.
Joe, they're not, but that's not the point here. They get a first-round bye. Let me give you an example.
Wait. That's not true. They do not get, not every single conference winner gets a first-round bye. That's not true.
Yeah.
Wait.
What are you talking about here?
not every single conference winner gets a 12-team a bye.
Your highest 4 conference championship winners.
I'm pulling up.
Yeah, pull it up. See what happens.
4 teams get a bye. Okay.
Yeah.
That
conference
is not
champions.
But that's not a guarantee that all
it is a guarantee. They just guaranteed it.
There's 5 teams that are automatically qualified.
Joe, then what is the automatic qualifier then? If they're not going to be a top 4 team, then what is an automatic qualifier? They're not going to put a conference champion at 7.
Yes, obviously. But what I'm saying is that there's 5 automatic qualifiers. Not all 5 of them get a bye. Not all 5 of those teams get a bye.
No, the group of 5 team is the only team that doesn't get the bye.
So theoretically, if one of those teams that wins their conference is so they won't get a bye. They would get pushed out by the other automatic qualifier.
Semantics here, because
I'm not.
Joe, you know good and goddamn well that there's not going to be a Big 12 team ranked lower than the highest group of 5 champion.
But that's my whole point, is that there is such a small possibility that we're not going to have a team that wins their conference that isn't going to be worthy of being in the conversation.
Texas goes 11-1 and Utah's a 10-2 team, and you know from what you've seen, Texas is 11-1. And hold on, goddammit, and Utah has no business being a top 4 ranked team. Automatic qualifiers can take a dog shit because they're not worth a damn. You're in a sport where recruiting matters and teams are built off of recruiting. You know, I know, my Meemaw knows, everybody knows that automatic qualifiers are dog shit.
You have to win the games that you play. It's the same thing that we did 2 years ago when we talked about Alabama and why they didn't deserve to get in because they didn't have enough wins. There is no shot in hell with the current format of the SEC and the Big Ten, with the amount of teams that are now playing it and the amount of games in conference that they're going to play, that will have more than one team go undefeated or have go undefeated heading into the championship game. That is very unlikely. More likely than not, the team that loses the conference championship game. Let me finish. It is more likely than not that the teams that don't win their conference championship games and lose and get into the playoff are going to have 2 losses.
Alabama and Kansas State played in the bowl game that year, the Big 12 champion, and Alabama clapped those cheeks by 40. So the year that you're talking about, the Big 12 champion that would have had an automatic qualifier.
I'm not saying that they're comparable teams. I'm saying that you have to win the games on the field to get into this.
We literally just saw what would happen.
It's not a beauty pageant. It's the same thing as the Florida State conversation that we had a million years ago.
You're making it a beauty pageant. Hold on. Yes, you are. You make it. You know what you do? You give participation trophies to teams that have no business being in a top 4 scenario.
Win your conference. Win your conference if you want the bye.
What's tougher, winning the SEC or the Big 12?
Win your conference. That's not the conversation.
Can you just, for once in your godforsaken life, tell me?
Obviously, the SEC or whatever you said.
Yes. Answer me this question. What is tougher, winning the Big 10 or the Big 12?
Obviously, the Big 10.
Okay, is it tougher to get to those championship games than it is what it would be in the Big 12? It's never
obviously harder.
It's not equal, though. Their teams are not on the same playing field. Let me give an example. You like to bring up the NFL a lot, right?
Yeah.
But the NFL goes to other divisions a lot of times. You play more division or non-division games, or the same amount of division games that you do non-division games. So you can have a team like my team, the Saints, that goes to Seattle, then San Fran, okay, then comes home, plays a conference game or division game, then they go to Green Bay the next week. So every time y'all come up with these NFL solutions saying, well, the NFL does this, the NFL does that, it's never the same. It's not, Joe. There is no way in godforsaken hell that we can come to a situation where the suits in this room are coming up and saying, you know what? You know what would be cool? If everybody got an automatic qualifier for a conference champ.
But the problem is The problem is that remove the automatic qualifiers. How do we create these rankings? We're going to value teams winning their conferences when we create these rankings. The rankings determine the seedings, and as it's always been in the history of the college football playoff ranking, the teams that have won their conferences have gotten a boost.
What they're going to do, what they're doing.
What do you mean misunderstanding what they're doing? They've always done this. The teams that have won their conferences have always gotten a boost. It's why Georgia ended up at 6. They lost their conference. They got moved down to 6.
Lost the conference and didn't move. It was never an automatic qualifier. Again, we are going to be in a.
It was an automatic qualifier because there were 4 teams and you had to qualify to be one of those 4 teams. It's not literally by the verbiage an automatic qualifier.
No,
but the debate was the 4 teams that qualified to get in.
No way, Jose. You could lose your conference championship and get in. We literally had a national champion 2 years ago get in and not win their conference.
We have to include this because then there would be an imbalanced representation by certain conferences because certain committee members are going to have biases based on the conferences of the teams that they play in. We had a Pac-12 team that made it this year that just whooped the ass of a team that is now on its way to the SEC.
They won their conference championship game.
Washington won their conference championship game.
They deserve to be there.
More often than not, and you did this the whole year. You're one of these people the whole year discounted everything that Washington did because they were in the Pac-12.
Did I ever finish the season strong? Hold on. Did I ever say that they didn't deserve to be in the playoff when they were undefeated? Did I not come out here and eat my words?
You did at the very end of the year. You eventually agreed, but it took them winning their conference and going undefeated.
I thought that they ultimately weren't going to lose. They proved me wrong. My whole thought about this was.
But that's my whole point, though, is that the general biases of certain people, and I'm not saying you're biased. You are. We both are biased. Everybody has their own biases that occur in their decision making. What I'm trying to get at, though, is that if you don't have these qualifiers, then we're going to end up with mostly Big Ten and SEC teams that are being represented. That's just what it's going to eventually be.
Well, let me ask you this. Then why can't Notre Dame have an automatic qualifier? No, let's talk about Notre Dame. Why can't they have it? If my argument is so flawed, then why can't Notre Dame have an automatic qualifying bid? So now hold on. We get to a situation where, now we're about to talk about Notre Dame, which is your school, by the way.
Yes.
Okay. Notre Dame can, and it's been reported for a long time here, this is nothing new, is going to be unable to have an automatic qualifier because they don't play in a conference championship game. They're not in a conference, clearly. Number one, do you agree with that?
I hate this kind of okay. See? You know what? I don't care. Notre Dame, I think, is a very different circumstance because Notre Dame plays
it's a very different.
Yeah, it is because Notre Dame consistently plays one of the hardest schedules in the country every single year. They deliberately, intentionally schedule a difficult schedule.
Then what do you, before we talk about Notre Dame here, then what do you call the SEC and Big Ten schedules?
I'm not saying that
versus the Big 12. So you just proved my point.
But they play a number. They have consistently played a number of the top teams in the SEC and the Big Ten over the past decade. They've played Georgia. They're playing Texas A&M this upcoming year. They played Ohio State back to back. My point is here, and what I wanted to talk about with this, Blake, and why they got screwed. Jack Swarbrick was one of the original architects for this.
He was.
So we don't have a right to complain.
Which is Notre Dame's former athletic director, just so people that don't know. Okay.
I will be the first to say here, they don't have a right to complain because Swarbrick was the one who agreed to this. They don't. They don't. We don't. But I have a right to bitch at Jack Swarbrick, who has done a number of things to negatively position the team that I root for. He screwed us over a number of times with hirings and the way things have been handled. And here we are now by not putting up more of a fight in order to find some sort of a loophole for Notre Dame to get in. There should be some sort of ruling that allows if Notre Dame is, all I'm asking is if Notre Dame is undefeated, they should be allowed to qualify because they are one of the few remaining independents to fit in as an automatic qualifier. I'm not asking for them to be an automatic qualifier just because the committee liked what they did this year. They deserve, if they are undefeated with the schedule that they play, should be enough proof that they deserve to be an automatic qualifier. Swarbrick screwed us out of that. He's the one who screwed us out of that by not putting up a fight. But I don't think that that is an unfair statement to make in this discussion.
It is. Can I tell you why?
Why?
Because you will never play in a conference championship game. Like ever. You're already getting a bye. So in theory, you would have 2 byes. You can't not be in a conference. So let me give an example. It's unfair to literally, you were talking about what's fair and unfair. It's literally unfair to everybody else on planet Earth in college football for them to have to play a conference championship game and for Notre Dame not to.
It's less about having the week off and having that bye week.
Joe, you play college football for far too long. You know what a bye week does for all of us.
I'm saying that it has more to do with them getting unfavorable matchups. Them having to realistically, that if they can't have an AQ, the highest that they can be seeded is 5. And I believe if they end up as the 5 seed, that would present them a difficult not a super difficult first round matchup, but the second round matchup would not be easy. They wouldn't be able to position themselves to be one of the top 4 teams to have a easier path. They are always consistently, because of this shitty decision-making and negotiating, are always going to have one of the more difficult paths to get to the national championship game. They dug themselves a hole.
You also don't have to play a ranked opponent in a conference championship game, like what everybody in the Big Ten is going to do. Like, for example, even if you had to play Iowa, Joe, you're still playing Iowa. Like, even if you're playing, well, I guess we really can't. Okay, we'll just do this. Imagine not having the week off when Georgia has to play Alabama or Alabama has to play Georgia, however you want to word it. It's a big difference, brother. It's a massive difference because they could easily lose a game against Alabama, Georgia. And I'm going to be real with you. Alabama could have lost to anybody this year. Now they had Nick Saban, but you know, you and I both know they could have lost to a lot of teams this year. But even though they pulled out those games, my only point is I don't see this as an issue for Notre Dame. Can I tell you why?
Why?
Because you're going to have a bye week, okay, when everybody's playing conference championship games. And if you're high enough a seed, you're going to have a playoff game at home. You're going to play the same number of games that Georgia or Texas or Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, you'll all play the same number of games. It just comes in different weeks.
If I'm correct, the first round of this playoff is not immediately following the conference championship
games. 2.5 weeks, I believe. But my point is, Joe, you
I just don't know how much of an advantage that is that they don't have to play in a conference championship game.
Then
There's
why
be other teams too that don't have to play in a conference championship game that are going to be.
They don't have automatic qualifiers, which is the argument.
That's not why I'm bringing that up, though. I'm just saying that it's not a hindrance, and it's not going to hold back teams because they have to play an extra game and they have to play in their conference championship game. It is not some massive holdback that they have to play them.
Can I be honest? I know you're going to call me crazy here. I think it's a massive advantage
that they don't have to play. You're saying that it's an advantage for Notre Dame.
They don't have an automatic qualifier. Yeah, I do. And let me tell you why. Because if you're 5 playing 12 at a playoff game at home, that's a big moneymaker, massive moneymaker. On your own gate, ticket, tailgating to the economy, it's a big deal. I think Swarbrick actually, believe it or not, Joe, the only way you get it is to get it to be in a conference, right? Like to get an automatic bid. But could you imagine a playoff game? Joe, imagine, I don't know. Well, because it'd probably be a number 12 team. But no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have to be. Joe, imagine. I'll give you one. Imagine Brian Kelly returns to South Bend in a playoff game. By the way, you didn't play in a championship game 2.5 weeks before. You mean to tell me that that's not a massive deal for Notre Dame? you're all going to play the same number of games, and you get a playoff game at home. So you can't have it both ways. You can't not play in a conference championship game and then win an automatic qualifier because your schedule's undefeated. Because you know what the new AD is going to do? Y'all are going to put – let me ask you this question. You have said multiple times on this show already that next year that their schedule is really light. Did you not?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty light next year.
Now, what happens if they go undefeated and Texas plays, which they could, Texas plays 6 ranked opponents this year. 6 ranked opponents as of right now, which we would project them to do.
But wait. But this circumstance that I'm bringing up is not for the scenario of this upcoming year because
then
their resume next year, if they go undefeated, as I've mentioned before, is not going to be super impressive to go undefeated. They're actually probably not, if they go undefeated, going to get that 5 spot. They're probably more likely to give that 5 spot to somebody who lost their conference championship game. I'm willing to bet right now that that's going to happen.
Kelly coming up there, a revenge game.
But this is the whole
sidebar. Can we go?
Oh yeah.
If that happens, can we go?
I mean, the committee is going to do it deliberately. They tried to do it this year with the Relia Quest ball. I mean, it's going to
local Chili's because y'all only have Chili's in South Bend, right?
Stop it. Cut the bullshit. Cut the bullshit. My whole point here, though, with Notre Dame is that for the scenario where the times that they've gone undefeated and they've beaten teams like Clemson that were top ranked teams, and they've gone along and say they had beaten Ohio State and they have these opportunities to play these top premier programs in the past. They've played Michigan. If they have a schedule and a resume that is comparable, if not better than, which in the future they're going to deliberately try to schedule as many difficult non-con opponents as possible to bolster that resume. If they face as difficult of a schedule as Texas, this is where the scenario comes into play. If they play as many ranked opponents as an SEC team and they go undefeated, it's bullshit that in this scenario, as we've talked about here, that if we have a 2-loss conference winner, by the way, it's plausible that we have a 2-loss SEC champion. That is very plausible with the amount of teams and the new conference format. It's unfair to Notre Dame to automatically be at a hindrance that they have to play the extra game thing. I understand, to your point, it is an advantage that they have that week off. But to be given a more difficult path when they've earned the right to be playing an easier path, to play easier opponents, is where I'm saying that it's bullshit. And I'm not saying that it's bullshit on the playoffs end, and I'm not trying to put my hand up and say, woe is me. Again, I'm pointing my blame at Swarbrick for agreeing to this and not trying to put up some sort of a loophole fight in order to get them into the mix as one of the automatic qualifiers. And it would solve your problem.
What's my problem?
If they get an automatic qualifier for going undefeated, it automatically bumps out one of the shitty conference winners that you brought up earlier.
How many times no, you can't do that. Because, again, they will have less number of games than everybody else.
One less game. But if they play as many ranked opponents as those teams, why does it matter?
One less game against? There's a big difference that, it's one less game when you're going up against Georgia. No, buddy, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. When my school's got to play Georgia in the SEC championship game and you get to sit there and put a Twinkie up your ass, no.
But this is why this whole thing is crazy. Notre Dame could end up being the number 1 team in the country, and they could go on to have to be then the 5 seed in this playoff. That's what I'm trying to get at. And go ahead. You made a joke about sticking something in my ass. Why I have problem with this is to put together a dominant season if you're Notre Dame, and then to immediately get pushed back all the way to 5 is where I have problem with it. You done laughing at your terrible joke?
No, it wasn't a terrible joke.
It's pretty stupid.
Okay. I look, I don't know if you don't want to have it in this situation. Again, do you not want a playoff game at home?
I do, but so you, to this point though, you win your first round, you're the 5 seed, and then you come back around and you play a 4 seed. You don't get any more. You don't.
But here's my ultimate thing before we wrap this Notre Dame thing up.
Okay.
You have an ultimate advantage by not being in a conference for 1 week.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, it is. It is an advantage.
And can I be honest with you? Going and playing Stanford, it's like playing an FCS opponent.
It's not. I think that this is going to more negatively impact the seeding on Notre Dame no matter what they do, because they're not an automatic qualifier. They're constantly going to be said and pushed down in the rankings. No matter how good they do during the season, they're going to – I think it's going to be even hard as shit for them to get to that 5 seed. I think we're going to constantly hear arguments against them, and it's going to be impossible for them to get that 5 seed.
If they play 10 Power 5 opponents, you won't.
Nobody plays 10 Power 5 opponents.
You do. You will.
Do they this upcoming year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you play 10 Power 5 opponents. How do I know your schedule more than you do?
I have terrible memory.
I do too.
Wait, they got 1, 2. They've Army, NIU.
Oh, I forget about
Miami of Ohio. Yeah, they're an American team now.
Hell, you can lose some.
Oh, and they play Navy. They only play 8. They only play 8.
So all those arguments that y'all make about the SEC having only 8 conference games, look at you. You only play 8 Power 5 opponents. Elks70 says CC equals automatic bid, but not auto top 4. Good idea. What is he trying to say here? CC conference championship equals auto bid, but not auto top 4. Good question mark. Good idea.
I mean, that's, I think, where you and I could at least agree on, right? That if you win your conference, you should at least get into the playoff guaranteed.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got to be in the playoff. If you win your conference, my only issue is I don't mind you being in the playoff. I mind you being a top 4 seed. That's what I mind. I just think it's absolutely ludicrous. It's insane. Cody McGee with a $4.99 super chat says that Notre Dame wants to have an auto bid in the playoff. Just join a conference.
It's not happening anytime soon. It's just not.
I don't think it is either. But again, let's not act like Joe. Last thing for me on this. Me and you both play college football. We know what happens when we have a bye week. You and I both know what happens during a bye week. You come back re-energize. It's a big, 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 big deal. It's a reason why the NFL, everybody's trying to do it in the NFL. Joe, it's a massive deal to have that first round.
But I would also argue, though, as we've seen happen a lot of times, and it's happened to Notre Dame a bunch, having too many weeks off in between games is also a negative.
Yeah, but 2.5 weeks isn't that bad. I mean, it's just exactly what the SEC champion will have. They'll have 2.5 weeks off.
But then Notre Dame has 3.5 weeks.
And you can also look at, what you could look at it as? A tune-up game before you got to go play Georgia. What about that? You get a tune-up game against Liberty before you go and play Georgia.
I just think, to my point, that Notre Dame would have to I think that the way that this has been structured, they'd have to have an impeccable season just to get that 5
and we know that's not happening.
Oh, screw you.
I mean, we're having this argument acting like this shit's going to actually happen. Okay. I know we're going long on this. That's what she said. Joe, it was reported by Pete Thamel today too that that there was a discussion in Dallas today by the powers that be, who I guess we just will never know who that is. Already are having conversations for in 2026 to expand to 14 teams.
Can we pump the brakes?
What are we doing here?
Can like, seriously, we talked about this earlier. They're trying to pull more money out of this. I am been an expansionist. 12 teams is the perfect number in my opinion. Anything more than that, we're just dicking around. We really are. There can be an argument made that there are 12 teams in college football, especially last year, that were good enough to maybe sneak their way into a national championship. Realistically, there's probably more closer to 6 that are good enough to play in a national championship. There are not 14 teams. There are not. And I'd be willing to bet that if we go as far to expand to 14, that they don't find more ways to involve the G5. We don't need 14 teams playing in the playoff. If this is supposed to be some sort of an extra play-in or something, is that how we're going to go about it? It is so goddamn ludicrous to put this into the mix and even put this out there. I pray to God that this does not come through, because that would be so horrible.
The only you bring up something interesting there. I wouldn't mind it if it's 14 and the play-in game is the G5 opponent.
Like you're saying, force the G5 team to play?
Force the G5 to play an SEC opponent or a Big Ten opponent. Let them play. Okay, hell, play at home. Okay, let the G5 team have a home game. But, you brought up something. Maybe I might change my mind on this. Joe, what if that was a play-in game and who would have been left out this year? Oh. Imagine Ole Miss and Liberty in a play-in game.
Yeah, they would have completely smoked them.
They would have completely smoked them. So you would always get what maybe would solve my problem is not having a G5 team in there. I don't like the 14. So actually, believe it or not, even though we've argued for the last 45 minutes, I actually, for the first time tonight, kind of agree with you on something, okay, on everything you just said. But then when you said, I wonder if it's a play-in game, my mind starts to wonder. Like if you did do the G5 versus another a Power 5 opponent, and you got another Power 5 opponent in there, but you're on your last leg. You got to beat this team to get in there. I don't know if I wouldn't mind that. I don't know if I wouldn't mind watching Liberty get those cheeks clapped.
The reason why I immediately brought that up is that I thought of.
Look at you with good ideas. See, I knew you'd be my vice president when I become commissioner.
Nobody's making you a commissioner. Nobody's making you a commissioner.
Don't. Please, God, don't. I don't want that job.
I immediately thought of March Madness, where there's those couple of play-in games where, hey, you didn't really qualify and you're not really good enough, but you can kind of duke it out with somebody and see if you deserve to fit into this. That's the only way that I could maybe put up with this, because those are just extra games to watch. And that's what we're trying to get out of this. That's what the media networks want to get out of this. They want just more competition that they can put on air that means something that people are going to tune into. As long as there's no real implications on this, I can at least justify it. Because you're talking about the two teams scraping the bottom of the barrel, I guess it would probably be four teams fighting to play into the 12-team bracket.
No,
is that too many?
Teams. No, it'd be two teams trying to get that final number 12 spot. So if you had
makes me think of the NBA play-in tournament is what makes me think of.
Yeah, I mean now
wouldn't that be 13 teams?
No, it'd be 14, because say you got 12 teams that are in the playoff.
Yeah, 12. There's 12 teams in the playoff, and then we're vacating the 12th spot.
You're right.
To be played between two teams.
13. Yeah, you would be technically 13. Huh.
So you'd have to have two play-in games.
Ugh.
I mean, this is why it's so stupid.
I don't like it.
This is why the whole concept is dumb. There's no way to incorporate 14 teams.
You literally
putting in.
Tell you what the take that you just had made me think of.
What?
You just made me it's like when you see a girl at a bar and she's got big old hoo-has, and then you're so excited because you're going to go home with her, and all of a sudden you get her home and she takes it off and they're fake and they don't look good and her titty nipples are pointed this way. I was so excited about a playing game until you just walked in here and ruined my sideways titty nipple take.
That was not where I thought that was going to go. My point is that the only way to justify putting 14 together is if it is a play-in. And at that point, what are we really getting out of that? We're just throwing teams in to just go head first at one another for nothing. Those teams are probably going to be banged up. Those teams are probably not going to be in a real competitive position, and they're probably going to have 3 or 4 losses. Right?
I would agree. They probably had 3 or 4. Well, no, because LSU was the 14th team and they had 3 losses.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, 3 or 4.
What you're saying is,
you know who it would be? It would have probably have been Oklahoma State versus LSU. And it would have probably have been like Liberty versus Ole Miss. Like we saw those teams play. They were fun to watch.
You wouldn't want to see that?
What do I get out of that?
I mean, I don't want
Neither of those teams are going to win a national championship.
No, they are not. And look, I told you on Monday, when Georgia and Ohio State play for a national championship this year, I don't want to hear shit. Joe, this is the biggest college football season that we've ever had. It will be the biggest college football season we've ever had because you're going to have a scenario where Notre Dame's got to go to Baton Rouge, LSU's got to go to South Bend, Indiana. One of those things are going to happen. It's going to be the biggest college football. You can clip this. It's going to be the biggest college football season we've ever had from a popularity standpoint.
Okay.
I'm telling you, they know what they're doing. There's a reason they're doing this.
I don't disagree with that.
The money is going to be flowing in because everybody knows what's about to happen. Now, I'm not just because I said that I don't want it, and I know that you said to some extent too, does not mean that this isn't going to be highly entertaining.
No,
it's going to be highly entertaining. It's the biggest college football season that we've ever had in 2024, without question.
That was why in my lead-in I was saying the 12 team is going to be entertaining because we have some fringe teams that like maybe something went wrong in the beginning of the season. There's going to be a team in the next 5 years. There's going to be teams that are like the 10th or the 8th seed that go on a historic run at the end of the year that miss their conference championship game and then go on a crazy, crazy run because they caught fire. It is going to happen. Like I think of like Missouri is a really good example. Is a team that I think that was just figuring out its identity at the end of the season. Like that, or Ole Miss is another one.
Missouri beats Ohio State in Columbia. You think?
Right.
Let me ask you a hypothetical question: is Ryan Day fired that next Friday?
I think it drastically increases. But this is why it's good. We're removing these shitty bowl games that were backup exhibition games that didn't mean anything. And now Ryan Day doesn't have the excuse of saying like, oh, we had the third string quarterback in. It's going to be like, if you get smoked and you go down to your third quarterback, the conversation is going to be, what do you mean you didn't have a quarterback on the roster that was good enough to step in and play in that game? It is going to make things a lot more tense, which is why I have been in support of it. But when we get to 14 and we start talking about 14 is where we have to draw the line. Because then at that point, it's just a fucking circus.
I agree. Okay. Do you want to talk about this Kenny Dillingham thing very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it very.
Or do you want to wait and just push it to tomorrow or something?
Well, we're not going until Sunday, but
all right, let's talk about Kenny Dillingham really quickly. Go ahead.
So he in an interview with Arizona Sports had made a really great statement. He said, I literally spent 9 years of my life doing anything to become a coffee boy. So don't give me the, it's hard to be a coach right now. Yeah, it's hard, then quit. I thought that this was
perfect,
an awesome statement from one of the youngest coaches in the game right now. I think that there's a lot of excuse making being made across the sport. And yes, there are people that are leaving because of how difficult it is and looking for jobs in the NFL. It is not at a historic rate, but it is definitely happening. Dillingham is spot on here. The younger group of coaches, there's going to be even younger ones in the future. Those are the guys to invest in because they're hungry and they're ready to adapt with the game.
You know why older coaches didn't like NIL and are saying these things?
Yeah, because they had to change their ways.
Bingo. And younger coaches, historically, all of them probably want to see kids get paid. They understand where the kid's coming from. They understand where the player's coming from. Dillingham was with a lot of those kids when they were like, hey, man, what do you mean you just signed $1 billion TV deal and we didn't get anything of it? I like Kenny Dillingham a lot. I hope things work out for him at Arizona State. I mean, he's spot on here. And I think, and Joe, these are the conversations that we have with coaches all the time here. Okay. I had a guy at, we talk about LSU, what it is. I had a guy at LSU tell me almost identical to what he said. Like, man, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, I make well over 6 figures to come to work every day and pick up a phone and call a kid and say, hey, man, do you want to come to LSU?
Right.
And the LSU coach goes, oh, he wants to talk about NIL? Hey, here's the number to our general manager.
Well, so you bring up the really good point here, and I mentioned the younger coaches. I think as the actualized future of the sport is Dan Lanning, who has been doing a lot of interviews lately on On3. He's done it with you had on Brooks Austin earlier. He was on with him. He's been doing a lot of spots talking about this on like he's figured out the formula to really building a roster in the modern era. Those that are willing to compete and adapt are going to succeed. Is it difficult? Sure. But anyone who wants to face a challenge and find ways to overcome it is going to run headfirst into this. I'm all in on Kenny Dillingham, man. I think he's gonna get that program right.
Are we Kenny? Are we Arizona State fans now?
Oh, I've always been an Arizona State fan.
By the way, I think it's newsworthy. I'm going to get to Elks' comment in just a quick second. It was reported today, too, that Adrian Peterson, the great running back at Oklahoma, was selling all of his memorabilia, all of his sports memorabilia, his MVP and all that. He has just come out with a pretty vicious statement talking about how that story is not true. Wow. He was going to sell a lot of his college awards. He has come out, and he is mad, boy. I just thought we should throw that in there. Elks says, Joe, it's on his Twitter channel or Twitter page.
Yeah.
Elks 70 said with a $5 super chat says, take the top 10 teams and teams 11 and 12 play the G5 to get in. Kind of does solve our problem.
Take the top 10 teams, 11 and 12 play two. They each play a G5 team to get in. That was kind of what I was pitching, though. That was kind of what I was saying here.
Well, 11 and 12, it would just have to be
But that sucks even more, though, because there's definitely not 2 G5 teams that are good. So we'd have to watch SMU and Liberty play. Barf.
Well, SMU's an ACC team now.
Well, last year they would have been a G5 team.
Yeah, the SMU Mustangs are pretty upset that they are losing their left tackle. They even have media attacking the kid personally.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, where'd the kid go?
He just went in the transfer portal. He's a graduate student. They are pissed.
Tough shit.
That's what I said. But, a lot of those media up there in Dallas have receding hairlines. All right. We will see you again on Sunday. I thought this was a fantastic show.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't had a lot of screaming worthy topics. I'm glad that we had one today.
We hadn't really screamed like that at each other. Shit, we hadn't done that all year.
Maybe we need to do it more.
All right. We'll see y'all Sunday. Peace.